Hello everyone, it's Stephanie Nash from Inspire Me here, and today we are going to create this super cute pop-up card, and it's a pop-up card because it opens like so. So I'm going to show you how to create that today, and we are using the Butterfly Bijou Designer Series paper as well as the Free as a Bird stamp set. And I'm going to show you exactly what we need to do to make this card. All right, so let's get started. For the card base, I am using a piece of mint macaron, and it measures 11 inches by 4¼ inches. You're also going to need a piece of basic white measuring 9½ inches by 4 inches. And then you're going to want to have 2 pieces of Designer Series paper measuring 4 inches by 5¼ inches. Now on my sample, I've used this paper here, which is from the Butterfly Bijou Designer Series paper stack, which is part of the Butterfly Bouquet suite that is only available until May 3rd. And the paper did actually sell out during our free shipping event on the 17th, and we're hoping that we'll get some more in. But you can see this is the sheet that I used on the front, and I've decided to change it up while we're creating the card today. So I'm going to be using this piece, also from the same paper pack, and so we're going to put that on our front. And then for my complementing piece, which goes on the inside, I'm going to use this one, which is just like the swirls of watercolors, also varying from the inside here, which is more of a, an ink splatter camouflage look. So we're going to change it up just slightly, but it's still going to show you how to create the card. So the first thing you want to do is you want to fold your card base in half. Now I am going to score it just to make sure that I get a good fold. So you're going to score your base at 5½ inches along the long side of your cardstock. And you want to keep your trimmer out because we're going to need that for our piece of basic white. So we're going to be doing some scoring along the long side here as well. And the first score is going to be at 2 1/8 inches. Next is 4 1/4. And the next is at 6 3/8. So I'm going to pull out my ruler here. And the one thing I did notice is the markings that we need are actually on the dark side here. So you really have to pay attention to what you're doing. So I know this is 6. This is my 6 1/8. 6 2/8. So 6 3/8 is right about there. And we're going to score that. So there's our 3 scores. So you can go ahead and put your trimmer to the side. Now what we want to do is we want to fold these. So the first is going to be a mountain fold, and then we're going to do a valley fold, and then a mountain fold. And now that I've said that, I think that is incorrect. Sorry, so it's a mountain, and a valley. I had to think about that. So it is going to sit like this when we attach it to the card base. Now you could do this piece in the mint macaron if you wished to do so. I like the contrast that the basic white provided. So now the first thing we want to do is we want to attach our Designer Series paper to our front and our inside. So I'm going to create that, and I'm using my Stampin' Seal. And the one thing I will say is to make sure that you have a good coverage, because we are going to be cutting out a circle in the center. So you want to make sure that you have adhesive covering all sections of where there might be left a hole. So if you can see on my sample here, I've got some gaps where the paper pulls apart because I didn't have enough adhesive down. So just really go over it well, make sure that you filled in a lot of spaces. Your liquid glue would actually be a good alternative for that, just to make sure that you have that nice coverage. So when you're applying this, you should have an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. Just give it a good push, make sure that it's on tight. And then we're going to apply that complementing piece on the inside, and it should again leave that 1/8 of an inch border. And again, we want to make sure that we have full coverage here, just so we don't have those gaps when we cut out that circle. I don't normally use this much seal on a project, but because I learned my lesson on the last card, and it doesn't matter which way you put this designer series paper, I like the pinks at the top because it will match with the bottoms here. So now that we have that done, we want to cut out that circle. So I'm using the layering circles dies, and I'm going to use this size here. You're going to want to pull out your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Because the base is 4 1/4 inches, it's too wide to use with the mini. So you do want to have your full size. Pull those down, and then you're going to want to have your cutting plates. So all I'm doing is putting the front side on the cutting plate, and then you're going to put your layering circle on top, trying to get it centered top to bottom, side to side as best as possible. Put your other plate on top, and you're going to want to run it through a couple of times just to make sure that it cuts all the way through, because we have 3 layers of paper that we're cutting through. So there's twice, go through again, and then back. And that should do it. If you flip it over, you should be able to see that it's cut all the way through, and it should pop out nice and easy for you. So you can put that to the side. We will need the machine again, so don't put it away, just get it out of the way of where you're working at the moment. You pull your base back in. We're going to work with this again. So what we're going to do is we're going to position the inside before we start decorating. So to do that, you want to have that mountain fold on the top. Sorry, the shorter mountain fold on the top. And just kind of line it up where you're going to want it on the base. So you've got that 1/8 of an inch border top and bottom. Not too tight to the fold because you want to be able to close the card. And then what you want to be able to do is, using a pencil, which of course I can't find mine at the moment. There it is. Just give it a line here. Super light. So when you open it up, you can see that. You want to put your adhesive around that opening. That opening we don't want to put adhesive on. So again, use your seal, or if you have liquid glue, this would work here as well. And you don't need a heavy hand with the liquid glue. You can see I'm just coloring with the glue around that opening. Because I don't want it to impede anything. And then still holding that piece of cardstock in place. Mine shifted a little bit, so I'm just going to fix that. We're going to close the front of the card over top, give it a good push, and now when I pull, you can see it's good and attached, and you can just make sure that that's tight the way you want it. So then the next thing we're going to do is attach our bottom piece. So we're going to do the same thing. So if you fold it tight, like it's going to be when you close the card and you open it back up. We're just going to apply our adhesive on the back here. And again, you could use your seal or tear and tape. And holding that closed, you're going to close the back, give it a rub. So now when you open your card, you have the mechanics of the pop-up card. And that is really the worst part of it all. So that is your base. So now you get to decorate, but the one thing you want to do is create the circle that's going to fill in the negative space here, and it's going to cover up that piece. So I'm going to use mint macaron again, which is what I've done on the sample here, and then a basic white circle that I cut out using the stitched shapes dies. And this is the second largest circle, and we're using that same layering circle die that we used previously. So I've cut out my circles, I've got my mint macaron and then my basic white, and what I want to do is attach my circle in that negative space. And you can see that you have the crease line. You want to make sure that your adhesive is only going on the lower portion. You're not going on the upper portion above that crease line. So again, you can use your seal here. I've got the liquid glue out, so I'm just going to give it a good coverage with that. And your circle should fit perfectly in that space. Give it a good push. I like to flip things over. Give it a good rub. So there we have our circle in place. I'm just going to get my scraps out of the way here. And then you're going to attach your basic white stitched shape circle right over top. It leaves that nice border. But before we do that, we want to sponge the edges just to give it some definition. And I'm going to use Bermuda Bay to do that, just to pick up the Bermuda Bay that's in that designer series paper. So I have my Bermuda Bay ink pad and a sponge dauber. You can just use a regular sponge from the catalog. I like to cut them into quarters or eighths to make them more manageable, but I've recently switched to the daubers as I find I have more control over where the ink hits when I use them, and I like that they fit on my finger, less mess. So you can see I'm lightly going around the edges to create that shadow, just to give it some definition. I'm going to put my ink away because I'm infamous for sticking my fingers in it before I'm finished and inevitably getting it on my project. So now you want to layer that on top of the mint macaron circle that we've recently done. Give it a good push, make sure it's nice and tight. And we're one step closer to completion. So next we want to start decorating. So you can see on my sample here that I've used this butterfly. This is actually one of the butterflies from the designer series paper that you can cut out using the dies. And I have some additional ones here that I've cut out. So you can see I've cut out various ones. This one I've stamped and then cut out. I have them all tucked in this little package here. So various sizes, various colors. So that's another one from the designer series paper. These are also from the paper. So this is from the designer series paper as well. And it's actually small enough that we might be able to use that. Yes, I think I like that. Let's just see if I have any others here. Let's try it. I'm not 100% sold. I'm thinking I might want to use this guy and color it, but let's let's play around with it and see if I can get it to do what we want. All right, so before we do that, I am going to stamp our sentiment. So that little piece that we discarded when we were cutting our paper, it's about a 1/2 inch wide and then however long. We're going to use that to stamp our greetings. So pull out that Bermuda Bay ink again. And this is where I'm using the Free as a Bird stamp set, which is from the annual catalog, and it's one of my favorites. And I'm going to use the thank you, and then later we're going to use the your friendship means the world to me on the inside. So let's start with thank you. And we're going to put that on our clear block. I'm just going to ink that up. And I'm going to leave some space on the end of the paper because we're going to create a banner flag edge, and it's not perfectly centered. So if you're not happy with that, you can flip it over. I'm just going to rotate my paper. Try it again. Yeah, the other one's better. All right. So then I'm just going to snip it off to get my sizing. And again, I'm going to put my paper to the side, or my ink to the side, because I'm famous for sticking my fingers in it. And so on the end that's shorter, I'm actually going to shorten it a little bit more. I'm just going to trim there. We're going to create that banner flag. Now, if you have our punch, you can do it with the punch. Otherwise, you can do it with scissors. So all I do is create a snip up the center, and then I come in from the corners to meet the top of that snipped piece. And there we have our flag. But I want to do the same on the other side, so I'm going to eyeball it, trim off the excess, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. So snip up the middle, come in from the corners. There's 1 and 2. So there's our greeting. I'm just going to get those scraps out of the way. Now with your butterfly, you don't want it to overlap the edge of the circle, because when you open the card, well, that one actually might work a little bit. If it overlaps too much, it gets hung up when you open the card, but this one might work. Ooh, possibilities are brewing here. So I'm going to pull out dimensionals, and we're going to play with this butterfly. So I'm going to grab dimensionals. We are going to put that in our circle, overlapping. I'm happy with that. So there's our butterfly, ties in with our colors. Now we're going to attach our greeting. So again, we're going to use Stampin' Dimensionals. And you should be able to use the full size. You should actually fit perfectly. And I'm going to put the dimensionals closer to that flag end, leaving the center empty, because we're going to put our ribbon through there. So you can position it under the butterfly. Again, you don't want it to get caught on the edge, so you want to make sure that it stays clear. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to pull in some white baker's twine. This is from the Snail Mail Suite in the mini catalog. And I'm just going to tie a bow. And play with your ears until you get them your desired size and length. If they curl a little bit, that's okay. And then once you've got it tied, you can cut your ends. So this is where we're going to feed it through. So we're going to take one end and feed it between those dimensionals. So it comes down like so. And then we're going to put a little dab of our liquid glue just where the bow is actually going to sit. hold it in place. It's probably too much. Good thing it dries clear. And then we can snip our tails. Maybe I'll wait for the glue to dry before I try that. Because if we leave our tails long, they're going to get caught as we open the cards. So let's just leave that for a moment. So there's that one. There we go. Snip those tails. So there's the front of our card. So now let's work on the inside. Now I had thought to actually use this butterfly on the inside, like this one here, but I think it's actually too small to be the focal point that I want it to be. So we're going to create our own butterfly in the colors that we desire. So to do that, we are going to use the Brilliant Butterflies stamp set. So I'm going to pull in my Stamparatus for this because this stamp set is really quite large. So this is the stamp set I'm talking about. It is one piece. You'll see when I open it here. And it coordinates perfectly with the dies. So we are going to use this. I'm going to put it right here on my plate. You can hear my dog deflating in the background. I apologize. And because we're only using the Monarch, I'm going to position my paper so that I'm only getting the Monarch. Actually, let's do it this way. All right, so I'm going to do that, but we don't want the foam mat. That's designed to be used with photopolymer stamps. So I've got my paper where I want it. So now we want to pull in our magnets. So if you flip your Stamparatus over, you have magnets on the back. I need to replace my washi tape on that one. They are super strong, so try to keep them apart. And we're just going to put a magnet on the cardstock to hold it in place so that when we're stamping, we're not impeding our image and it's not allowing the paper to shuffle around. So for this, we're going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And we're just going to ink up that Monarch, or as close to only that Monarch as we can. And I know I'm going to get a little bit of the other butterflies while I'm making sure that he's fully covered. That's okay. So when you've got it inked up, you're going to close that plate. And I like to give it a good rub to make sure it transfers. And I'm happy with that, but I want to see if I can make it a little bit darker. So this is the joy of the Stamparatus. Because that image hasn't moved at all, or that paper, I can now re-stamp it and it's going to be perfect. Lovely. So there is our Monarch. So now you can just take your magnets off. Again, don't let them touch. We have our butterfly image and we're going to cut that out with our dies, but we're going to color it first. So I'm just going to move my Stamparatus out of the way. And because our paper are pinks and blues, it's actually Magenta Madness is the pink. And then we have Pool Party and Bermuda Bay. You can actually choose how you want to color this. I'm going to use Stampin' Blends. So there's the magenta, and I'm going to pull in Pool Party. And I haven't colored this or have a plan of how I want to color this. So this is going to be a little bit of trial and error here. So let's see. I'm going to start with the inside and work my way out. So I'm using the dark Pool Party first. I'm going to repeat on this side. And again, no right or wrong. You can color your butterfly however you choose. I may not like this in the end, so time will tell. And then I'm going to move into the magenta. So this is the light magenta. Just copying on each side what I've done on the other. All right, so there's the light magenta. So now I'm going to come in with the dark and really try and blend that in. What I like about this image is it already has some natural shading, so it just helps with your coloring. So if you were using all magenta, you would use the dark where the natural shading in the images, and then you would come in with the light in the lighter spaces. But because I'm creating my own colors here, I'm not really following any set of rules. I'm going to make the body pink, nice and bright. And come back over here. Just realized I colored up a little too high, but that's okay. What I love about the blends is they blend seamlessly together. They don't tear your paper as you blend them together. It's great. All right, and then I think I want to add some more pool party. This time I'm going to use the light, and we're just going to finish off the tips of the wings. Just pulling it all together. And you can see as I pull some of that dark magenta, it actually starts to change how the pool party picks up, and it becomes slightly purpley. So if I wanted to blend these lines together, I could do that. There we go. So there's our nice big butterfly. What do you think? All right, so now we're going to cut that out using our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Remember, I told you not to put it away, that we would need it. So I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to grab my cutting plates, and let me show you these fantastic dies. So the Brilliant Wings dies are part of that butterfly suite, and it is a one-piece die, so not only does it cut out the designer series paper with the butterflies on it, but we can also cut out our stamped image. So we're just going to line up that monarch, put our cutting plate on top, run it through, and you can hear my cutting plates cracking. That's totally normal. So there's our butterfly. Our little pieces we're going to put to the side. Machine out of the way. And let's pull our card back in. So here we have our butterfly. And my tip here is going to be to try and keep the wing.
I didn't get that.
Sorry, Siri is doing its own thing here. So we're going to make sure that the wing stays inside the card and the little tail here doesn't come down over that crease line. So again, we're using dimensionals, which I've put to the side and cannot locate. They're in front of my face. So my suggestion here is to figure out where you need those dimensionals to go. There's 1, 2, 3, and right about there. Because it's going to stick up over that crease, you want to make sure that you don't put a dimensional there in error. So let's do this. There we go. So there's our butterfly. Ties in nicely. And then we want to do some more stamping. So we're going to stamp our other sentiment here from the Free as a Bird, the Your Friendship Means the World to Me. Put that on my block. So I've got my stamp. I'm going to put that on using Bermuda Bay ink once again. So we're just going to ink that up. And right in the center of that bottom section. Close up your ink, put it to the side. And then when you cut your front piece of DSP, you likely had some pieces left over. We're going to freehand cut some of these butterflies to decorate the inside of the card. So I have a few pieces here. And it's okay if the butterfly is cut off because we can incorporate that into our design. So I'm going to start with this guy here and this one. So we're just using our snips and cutting it out as much or as little detail as possible. If you don't want the antennas, you can snip them off. This is really just the fun part, the decorating and creating. The structure of the card is complete, so now it's just about making it yours. So there's one. And I'm just going to snip off some of that excess so that it's not getting caught in my snips. Your paper snips are great for this. They're small enough that you can get into some of the smaller spaces. And they're nice and sharp to get those precise cuts. Okay, so now we've got some butterflies cut. If you need to add more, you can. I've just cut a couple to start. So you can see that I've got 2 of the darker pink ones and then 2 of the bluer ones. And so you can see here, this one was actually one of those ones that was cut off. So you can see if I put it along the side, then it works perfectly and you'd never know that it wasn't intentional. So to attach these, I'm just going to use my liquid glue. And because this one is a side one, I know it's going to get lined right up with the edge. And then I think I like this blue one. So we're going to do that up at the top. Like that there. And then we've got our two little ones here that we're going to put in. So there we have our decorated card. And of course, if you know me, you know I love bling. So we need to add some rhinestones just to finish this off. So I'm going to grab my basic rhinestones and the take your pick tool. And we're just going to add some rhinestones to this. So one there. So a few spattered on the front to complete the look. And there we have our pop-up card using the Butterfly Bouquet bundle, which is available now. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you had a great day, and I would love to see your version of this fold. If you post to social media, be sure to tag me. On Facebook, I am at InspireMeSN, and on Instagram, I am at InspireMe_Steph Nash. Thanks so much for joining.